Clerk, would you read the resolution?
Resolution number 2017-0055, authorizing the county executive to obtain and/or pledge one or more letters of credit from a bank or banks related to and in support of the Metro Health Systems Campus Transformation Project, approving and authorizing the execution of one or more indentures or other documents, authorizing other contracts and other actions related to and necessary for the matter described herein.
All right. We're going to now have, we have Nate Kelly, Tim Oftermatt, and Dennis Kucinich. Dennis, it was bound to happen. It was bound to happen. There you go. Dennis Kennedy, a completely unknown name, with us today. I guess, though, that right now, Mr. Oftermatt is, from what I heard, he's still at City Hall on a different project of some kind. About something. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Council President. We want to pick up where we left off on our presentation last week, and more importantly, to be able to have the opportunity to talk about some of the questions that you had last week, particularly around logistics. So I wanted to bring up our fiscal officer, Dennis Kennedy, and Tim will probably be available to us as he becomes available.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, before getting started, is there any general questions? I was not here at last week's presentation, so as opposed to starting from scratch.
To take on the questions that were given to us last week, if that's what you're, if you're prepared to do that, because I think that's what we're expecting.
Okay, Nate, do you?
I don't have a presentation for that, but I can introduce, the first question was a question about mechanics and how would the flow of funds go between the levy dollars and general fund. That was the big one that we needed to answer.
In the event that we were required to recoup against any kind of payment against a letter of credit, we're working on the mechanics of that currently. I think Mr. McAleer referenced that in the pre-meeting. What we would basically propose is to set up criteria in terms of a limit. Right now, we're talking about roughly $20 million, that if the $20 million payment was necessary against the letter of credit, we would recover that through an adjustment on the subsidy and by using general fund monies to make that payment. And then we would have to realign our priorities to see what could be moved from the general fund to the levy side to accommodate the $20 million. If the payment was more than $20 million, we could then have a discussion with Metro to determine if it was necessary to execute a subordinate repayment loan agreement. And how we would handle that is still subject to the discussions of the mechanics that are going to take place in the next, actually tomorrow.
Any questions on Mr. Kennedy's response? Hearing none.
Council members, the second question that was raised was from Councilman Miller about the impact to our debt reserve requirements. We followed up by email, but probably for the benefit of council.
Excuse me, Mr. Kelly, can you speak directly into the microphone, please?
Mm-hmm. But for the benefit of council, thought we'd reiterate that response.
Yes, we have confirmed with the banks. The banks are coordinating a consortium to get a combined letter of credit. The county will not be required to reserve any monies to guarantee repayment of that, in that it would not be a liability until we executed a transaction against that letter of credit. We do not have to make a reserve on our financial statements for any or all of the debt service reserve fund.
Questions?
So that'll keep our balance at its current level.
Questions on this point? Yes, Councilman.
I would just make an observation that that past practice has been to record a reserve on balance even on situations where we're acting as a backstop and there's a very low probability of what we're of having to make a payment. And so if we did not do a reserve on balance on this particular project, it would be a departure from past practice.
Mr. President, Mr. Miller, we can handle this transaction in accordance with GAAP procedures, and we will appropriately disclose the arrangement in a footnote, but we are not required from an accounting standpoint to reserve the balance on our financial statements.
Okay. Other questions on this point?
And then the last question was raised by Councilman Schron on considerations around pursuing a reinsurance agreement for that amount.
And we had a brief discussion. I was not involved in that until yesterday. I believe after talking about it with Mr. Oftermatt, his recommendation is that we do not move forward with that at this time. If he was here, he could give you a little more detail on that. I don't know native. But we talked about it at length yesterday, and he had recommended not moving forward with that.
So he's got a pricing model that shows that I don't recommend it conclusion? Because it sounds like you were not engaged too much if you just heard about it yesterday. So does he have a pricing model for reinsurance? I mean, we all buy reinsurance for multiple different risks out there in life, and you stack them up on your risk pool. Do we have that cost model?
Mr. President, Mr. Schron, I believe he does. I have not seen that, but based on the conversation yesterday, I believe he does.
Okay.
Mr. McAleer, you have something to add to this?
Yes, Mr. Chair, to Councilman Schron, the estimate that Tim provided, we talked to probably close to an hour the other day about this, is that it could range anywhere between $3.5 to $4 million for this type of insurance, and his recommendation would not to be, would for the county not to do that, but that is his current estimate of how much it would cost based off the estimated letter of credit amount.
And that's for the life of the risk of the exposure of the letter of credit that and so that fully covers our risk.
I can't speak on the mechanics of that.
There might
but
be a
it-
deductible or some component to it,
Correct,
but
and it would be a one-time fee
Right.
plus deductible, but his recommendation, and he also believed that there are limited companies that could actually provide this to us, and he said maybe it could actually just be one. So that's the estimate that he was providing at this time, was the $3.5 to $4 million.
okay, so rather than standing at risk for the full 80+ million, one-time fee of $3 million is what we're balancing this against.
And and this is where he can speak better than I can about this, but his concern was the fact that we could take this insurance and ultimately we still might have to pay back the insurance potentially close to the full amount, even if we get this stop loss insurance or this reassurance that we're talking about. But he had more detail on that he was prepared to speak about today.
Well, unfortunately, he's down the street. But we will have him more thoroughly answer your question at our next meeting. Other questions at this time? Okay, Councilman Miller?
Just on that last point, I didn't understand when you said that if you bought the reinsurance that you still might end up having to pay close to the full amount. Are you saying we could still be on the hook for most of the 75 to 82 million? And if so, why would the reinsurance do us any good? Or did I just not understand it?
Councilman Miller, if I can, let's have Tim provide some more information on that, because that was his concern, considering the limited options out there for this type of insurance, the cost associated with it, and then also potentially some of the repayment terms, including the deductibles and some other issues that he had with this. So I would like to get some more information from Tim to have him come in and answer those questions.
Okay.
Councilwoman.
So I don't know if this is a good time to ask generally about, there was an article, the editorial on the Plain Dealer about
You can
us.
ask about it,
Ask.
but they didn't write it.
I mean, I just,
We didn't write
from
it.
what I understand, that's not part of this deal, and there's no negotiable reduction in the subsidy that the county's been providing to our hospital. I mean, I read that, and I had no idea what the basis of that was. So I'm just asking people who have been involved in this deal whether there's any negotiable item to reduce the subsidy in exchange for carrying this bond, or providing the credit.
Mr. President, Councilwoman Simon, there's no predetermined arrangement related to our involvement in this. I think in terms of what transacts, should we be required to make a payment, a partial payment, that is what we've talked about in terms of the relationship of future subsidies, in terms of how the county could make itself whole related to that.
Mr. President, to the fiscal officer, of course, if there's things blow up and we're left with just a hole in the ground with Metro, which I doubt that will occur, but if it does, then we can claw back, or, obviously there will be no need to subsidize that situation. So yeah, I get that.
And again, I said this last time, but I want to repeat it, that the council, regardless of the length of this term, the council retains the authority. We have biennial budgets. We're going to be getting into that soon. Sure, we're looking forward to it. The council will determine the level of the subsidy, whether it's less or whether it's more. And each council, as the years go by, will do that and has the authority to do that. And that does not change. And I can complete confidence that sane, competent people will be elected to this council to make a good decision. Anybody else? Well, thank you very much. I believe Dr. Boutros may have a few words to say at this point.
Thank you, Mr. President, and my sincere thanks to the council for all the time and effort you put into this. As you're considering this really monumental decision to assist Metro Health, as you're considering this decision for this monumental endeavor that Metro Health is about to undergo, I would ask that you consider the importance of Metro Health to the community, that we have served the community, certainly, and I can speak from my time here in past 4 years, that we've been good partners on lots of community initiatives. Yesterday, we worked with the county to work on an opioid epidemic marketing campaign that we helped spearhead, and we'll continue to do so. And this assures our financial strength to be able to do more for the citizens of Cuyahoga County. So again, I want to thank you for all the time and energy you've put into this. Honestly, I would be remiss if I didn't thank your staff, led by Joe Nani, for all his effort, the county executive and his staff, Nate Kelly, and everyone else who has been involved. It's been a lot of time. I think I have never seen as a thorough analysis of a financial plan as I've seen done by the county council staff and the county executive staff. So I think you were very well served by them. They went into extraordinary detail up to the zip code analysis of where our patients come from. So they did quite a bit of work to reach their conclusions. And I would ask that you please consider keeping us on track for an April 12th vote. It is critical for Metro Health to have that done then. That is approximately a week before we put out our preliminary offering statements, and we have to include your decision in this preliminary offering statements, with the hope that we will close in early May. The time that has passed between the board passing the resolution and today, interest rates have gone up quite significantly, and we want to hedge against them continuing to go up. So I just would ask if there's anything you can do to assure a vote on that date. It would be wonderful.
Any questions of the doctor, Councilman?
Yes, Doctor. We just heard that there's no requirement for us to continue the subsidy, but do your financial models have it continuing throughout the life of this bond?
Yeah, we have it as $32.4 million as just as a general estimate, a stable rate.
So irrespective of whether or not we are obligated, your model would put quite a bit of pressure on whoever's sitting up here for the life of this to continue that subsidy.
So I would put it this way, Councilman Sharon. In order to maintain the level of support that Metro Health is providing to the citizens of Cuyahoga County, which last year was about $226 million, we have to continue to, we believe that we will continue to with that support. I think that, if I'm misunderstanding you right, is that if there's a default, is that what you're asking?
No, just the pure concept of it in the financial model. Our president said the future boards are not required.
Correct.
And that's the pure legalistic aspect of it. But your financial model has it running throughout the stream
As a flat,
cash,
yeah.
as a
a
cash
flat.
flow for
Yeah.
the entire life of this bond.
Yeah, so just to maybe to help you in history a little bit, during the time, the last major building project on the Metro Health campus, just to contrast, the entire amount was paid by taxpayer dollars. The entire building was a special levy that was paid, special tax levy over 5 years, and built the towers. Very different than today. We're taking on that responsibility. And about the same time, nearly 25%, excuse me, City of Cleveland, sorry. 25% of Metro Health's revenue came from the council, Health and Human levy support. Today, it's a little under 3% of the thing. So I think things have changed. I'm hoping that they can continue to go in the direction that we're going to, which is that Metro Health's needs to support the community will become more self-sustaining through our financial model. But in the model, it is flat $32.4 million.
'Cause I think I recall 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that, you indicated you would not be needing the support when you stood up there. And so I'm just want to make
Yeah.
sure I'm understanding what's being said.
Yeah, Mr.
You're
Schwan,
looking for it to come in a different alternative.
yeah, no, I think, and I'm happy again to share that with you, my quote was that, my hope was that we would take the $40 million of support at this time and turn it into a bond supported dollars. That's all I said. I said, if you can do that, if you can help us with the transformation for $40 million a year, we can take on the care of everyone in Cuyahoga County. So it was a repurposing of the dollars. That's all I asked for at that time.
And then my last question is, because we are changing the model by being the backstop with the letter of credit.
Yeah.
Any concerns about my suggestion of bringing staff from either the executive or our end on council at the financial table so they can be actually on a regular basis being part of the table when?
Yeah, happy. So we issue our quarterly financial statements, and they're online, honestly, as soon as the board receives them. They're online 4 days later. Happy to provide it to them immediately after the board meeting, have a discussion about it. What you will see during the 5 years, I mean, this is the risk time, is the 5 years of doing construction. Because we're going to have $1.3 billion in the bank. And we're going to be doing the construction. So during that period of time, there's honestly zero risk to Metro Health and therefore zero risk to the county. Okay, so we're happy to go through it with them on a regular basis. You have, just so you know, you have representatives who come every board meeting, and it's open to the public. So again, Finance Committee is open to the public, the board meeting is open to the public, but we're happy to sit down and have additional discussions with whoever would like to.
To include an appointment, potentially?
You appoint everybody on the board.
Not on the Finance Committee, though.
You appoint everybody on the board. That is the only members of the Finance Committee. So let me just be clear. The 339 statutes dictates who gets appointed to the board, and they're the only voting members of every subcommittee. So you appoint them all. None of them are self-perpetuating. So they're all people who have been appointed by this council. I'm happy to have Mike address it a little bit more, but 339 says there are 10 board members, only appointed by you. They compromise all voting members of any committee, period. So the Finance Committee, the Audit Committee, the Building and Planning Committee, there could be additional folks who serve as guests and come often and participate, but they're non-voting. Only voting members are your representatives.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilman. Well, what I'd like to do is make a motion to recommend resolution number, and these glasses are not as good as these glasses. Make a recommendation to move resolution number R 2017-0055 to the full council for consideration for second reading, adoption under suspension of the rules. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Sorry.
You all right? Okay, so I have a second. Any discussion?
Mr. President.
Yeah.
Mr. President, and my colleagues, in my opinion, the transformation of the Metro campus is not optional. They have some facilities that are more than 100 years old, and they're just not up to date, and they're not efficient, and it's not sustainable. And in the long run, it's a question of whether we're going to continue to have a public hospital in Cuyahoga County, which I believe is vital for our community. In my opinion, it would be possible for Metro to do the transformation without our assistance, but I believe that it is that Cuyahoga County government should consider Metro Hospital as a vital partner in everything that we do, and I believe that what's being proposed is a way that we can effectively and efficiently help with this project. It saves Metro something like $160 million over the lifetime of the project. I believe that the risks of having to draw on the letter of credit are reasonably low, and I believe that it's something that we can and should do to be an effective partner in helping to ensure that everybody in Cuyahoga County has access to health care. And with the uncertainties that we have over what the national model on health care is, I believe that the role of Metro Hospital is even more important, because I believe that Metro has the capability to continue to serve all of our community effectively in providing health care regardless of what the national model happens to be. So I strongly support the proposal and urge my colleagues to do the same.
Just very quickly, I'll reiterate what my colleague just said. It's, to me, to have Metro here is a gem, and we've been leading the nation in charitable health care and providing leadership on the Medicaid expansion. So I'm extremely proud, and there's no reason not to support this. The risk is so low relative to the benefit we're going to see, and the hospital can provide programs now that they're from the savings from this deal. So I'm fully supportive and want to support the hospital in any further projects. You have a commitment from me to continue to be here as a full supporter.
All right, thank you, Councilman.
Yeah, I will support bringing it out, but I would like to certainly hear from, if we have Mr. Opperman, who just got done advising us on a $140 million project, we certainly ought to have him advising us here at this point in time. I apologize that the timing is such that we need to make sure we have both things going. So I'd like to find some way in which this body could, I mean, if we're, the gentleman represented us all the way through for the last 2 months, and we heard his information and thoughts regarding another project that this body voted on. We certainly ought to hear him before we actually take our final vote as to what it means out there. So I'll be supportive of moving it out of the committee of the whole, but some point along the way, we ought to at least, if the man is is supposedly the person giving his advice and the county executive, we ought to hear from him.
Absolutely agree, and he's not missing. He's
No,
down,
I
he's down the
understand.
street.
He's got another, he has another rather important presentation he's making right now also.
We will have him here on the 14th. Absolutely, no doubt, for sure. So at that, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. Any miscellaneous business? Hearing none. Any public comment unrelated to the agenda?
No, Mr.
Hearing
President.
none. This special meeting is adjourned, and thank you all very much for taking your time today. I know we've had quite a schedule this year so far. We've had some really big projects. Good day.